Welcome everyone. This is Andre's Restart, and tonight we are talking about Nintendo, as we always do whenever we're live streaming. The topic for tonight, I mean, there's not really necessarily like a main topic for the evening. It's just I figured we'd do another kind of Q&A stream. I might do another one that might be a little bit bigger, might be advertised a little bit more to be kind of like the end of the year stream, maybe this Thursday. Don't hold me to that, but I mean, I guess if there's maybe a starter topic, the title, Nintendo is good for your mental health apparently, and the reason why I'm going with that is because we got this study that just came out that basically, I mean, I'm not going to go into all the nitty gritty details, but basically, there's a few different control groups, and they got results suggesting that people who were playing Mario Odyssey over the course of 6 weeks, they were seeing signs that depression-like symptoms were going down by about 50% or almost 50%. And so that's a pretty cool little fact. And it kind of gets me thinking about, just like, okay, all right, so like, what is it about Mario Odyssey that leads to that, right? And so it's interesting for that reason, but also earlier today I made a video about a leaker, right? A leaker. I put air quotes there because we don't know if they're really a leak or not. But Zippo, many of you may be familiar with that person, is no longer on the internet. They had a blog, which is where they put out a lot of their rumors, and they were taken down, or we're not sure what happened, right? There's a possibility that maybe they are a legitimate leaker and they were putting out information that Nintendo or Sega wanted to just kind of like strike it down, and that's why it's gone now. But I think there's a pretty good chance, and I would say a more likely chance, that the reason the blog post is now down is because they took it down. Now, did they take it down because it's maybe like some sort of publicity stunt? They'll come back and say, oh, I got banned by Nintendo or whatever, maybe, right? But I think there's a good chance that maybe they just took it down for personal reasons. And I find this interesting, one, because in general, I think the internet can be kind of like a little dark and negative. But I found that recently, ever since like the Game Awards, people have been a little bit more dark, a little bit more negative. And I imagine someone like Zippo, who doesn't have the best track record and when it comes to rumors, probably gets a lot of flack. And so it wouldn't surprise me during these times where unfortunately people are more negative, that maybe all that negative feedback started to impact them, and so they just got rid of it. And so I think many of you may know where I'm going with this, right? Like mental health, like maybe they just disappeared from the internet for mental health reasons. And I don't want to make assumptions. I'm just simply stating that when it comes to like talking about like just like video games, which is crazy when you break it down like that. When it talks about video games and speculating about what may happen, the conversation about that can get really toxic, which doesn't make sense to me, because you would think that that's the kind of thing that is like an escape. It's like, it's just, this is for fun, right? Like we're talking about video games and the future of video games. Like this is supposed to be a fun thing. And so it's just kind of interesting that, I sort of feel like there's been a lot of negativity about this stuff lately. And I think some of that has to do with a lot of Nintendo fans not getting what they wanted shown off at the Game Awards. I think it also has something to do with the fact that the announced lineup of games between January and March is probably not the most exciting for the core fan base. And so you start to see the immature people start to say a lot of things all throughout the internet. And so that impacts the conversation, right? And the toxicity can impact the mental health of other people, right? So when I see this study here, I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting that people who play Mario Odyssey, depression symptoms go down by nearly 50%. Like that's kind of a cool little detail. And so yeah, I might want to get into a little bit, like just kind of thinking about, all right, so what is it about Mario Odyssey that actually can help with like the depression symptoms? And I have a few theories on that, and so we'll probably talk a little bit about that tonight. But then, what we always do, speculation, theories about whatever you guys ask about. We'll dive into that too for a little bit, and that's kind of the plan for the evening. But let me check in here with the chat. If you guys could let me know how everything looks and sounds, I would appreciate that. Let me see here. I don't know why I can't find the live chat. It's like the live chat doesn't exist. I mean, maybe Nintendo took down the live chat too. They're all gone. Seriously, where is the live chat? Like, I can't find it. Oh, okay, it loaded up. It's weird. All right. Here we go. All right, so looking into the chat here, this was earlier. I don't know if you're still here, Kieran, but if you see this eventually, Kieran asks, will you be doing a 2024 predictions video? Yes, I will be doing a 2024 predictions video. Haven't gotten to it yet. There are things I want to talk about first before I get to that. And then also if there's news, I kind of prioritize the news. And so, yeah. I don't want to guarantee when the 2024 predictions video will come out. The final live stream of the year will probably be kind of like that with others, but my own personal predictions video, it may happen this week, maybe even the same day as the live stream, the final live stream, so maybe this Thursday. But I can't guarantee when it'll happen exactly. It may even end up happening sometime next week. I'm very flexible with what I put out for the day, depending on what's happening. So that's pretty much it. Anthony Smith, hello there. Hello there, Boo Mini. AB James 2, Super Mario Wonder supposedly had a huge sales spike over November, December. What are your current sales predictions for the game? Could it already be in the 7 to 10 million range? I wish I could kind of give like a really good. I'm not. It's always. I guess I would have to. Like, maybe I could look at like more like sales numbers and give you like a really good prediction. But I'm gonna say that once we get the numbers in for the holiday sales, I'm going to say that Mario Wonder will be at close to 10 million. That's my prediction. Close to 10. Hello there, Crazy Scoth. Super Chris, thank you for us. I was going to say spamming for modding. I appreciate it. Cosmosis, hello there. Hello there, Having Hope 5. Cosmosis, generally Nintendo make feel-good games, good prevails evil, etc., etc. Yeah, not always, but that is in general, yeah. Having Hope 5, everything looks and sounds great. Awesome, thank you very much. Wally Tiger, Andres, are you Zippo? No, I don't have time for that. Boom Mini, I have clients who report that video games have helped them get through difficult times, which is nice to hear. Example, Animal Crossing during COVID. Yeah, a lot of people used Animal Crossing as a nice escape. And I get it. It's a very calming game, right? Like it can kind of it feels like the kind of game that's good at diminishing stress. I see where people would be coming from with that. For me, it has almost an adverse. Like I enjoy playing Animal Crossing. When I'm playing it, I'm enjoying it. But there's something about like just having to be diligent with it and like consistent, and it is basically like chores. There's something about that gives me a little bit of an existential crisis, or maybe not existential, but just I just don't I don't like having to do things that I'm supposed to do in real life in a video game, I guess. Like, I guess I do to some extent because I have enjoyed Animal Crossing, but I'm not going to continue to play it after the 20, 30 hour mark, and I'm just going to kind of stop. Although I've been thinking about trying to give it another try, but I think I would rather play other games. So I'm so close to like 100%ing Pikmin 4. There's like these Sage challenges. So I'm kind of trying to complete that, and they're pretty challenging. And then once I do that, I will actually do the very, 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 very final fight in the game. And then I will probably move on to the Pokemon DLC because I feel like I should play that. I'm planning on blitzing through that. And then what I do after that, I'm not sure. I will also say I'm currently playing Monster Hunter World. So I've been playing that on my PlayStation, and I'm kind of blitzing through that as well. So yeah, that's kind of like what I've been playing lately. I actually also I beat Cuphead with my cousin like a couple nights ago, which was fun. And it was interesting because we were playing pretty late, and he had to go back home. So yeah, he already ordered the Uber for him to go back home. And as the Uber got there, we were playing co-op. He died. Right, he actually been playing better than me for that boss fight, the final boss fight, for most of that effort. But I really, really, really wanted to beat it there. I'm not going to beat it without him because we played the whole game together. So I don't know, just something in me, and I only had one life for most of the fight besides the first wave because there's like different like phases. And I just avoided everything, and I took out the very final boss in Cuphead. And so it was we finished the game at the buzzer, so that was fun. Hello there, Venetus. How are you? Cosmic Boza, buy OLED now or wait for Switch 2 or upgrade. If you already have a Switch, like if you don't have a Switch at all, I almost feel bad like telling you what you should do, right? But I believe the Switch 2 is coming out next year. I don't know that for a fact. I do not know that for a fact at all. But there are reports, there are signs, and I believe it is happening next year. And so if you're willing to wait until sometime next year, I'd say go for it. I'm still rocking my day one launch Switch, the Switch that came out March 3rd, 2017. That Switch I've still been using. And I've thought about getting an OLED multiple times. But I've just been like, you know what? I'm going to wait. And so I'm personally waiting. But at the same time, if you want an OLED, get an OLED. You could always trade it in later. You might lose some money, but of course you're getting to get an OLED sooner, right? So just something to keep in mind there. But yeah. Let's see here. Oh, we have our first super chat for the evening, and I think this might be a record. I'm not sure. This is crazy. Venetus712 with the really big super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat, Venetus. I very much appreciate it. Venetus says, spreading some Christmas cheer to one of my favorite creators. Thank you for all you do, and hope your holiday season will be joyful for you and your family. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that, Venetus, and I'm glad that you do enjoy the content. That's super nice of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a mega chat. It's definitely one for the record books. Let's see here. Let's see. AB James 2 added me. The Greek Critique recently posted a long hour video summarizing his playthrough of Metroid Dread, and it is so well done. The script, everything. I highly recommend it. That does sound like a good watch. I typically wouldn't watch an hour long like review of a game, but Metroid Dread is like they're like if you want to kind of like talk about like experiences, like but Dread is an experience, so like you could go into detail. And actually, it's kind of funny. I'm pretty sure when I did my review of Dread, it was almost like a ramble, right? Like I just went on, I just kind of talked about it. There was some planning, but not a significant amount. And so I imagine that this person's video had a lot of planning. But I'm kind of curious now. I'm gonna go back. How far do I have to go back to find my Dread review? Let's see. I have to go back a little bit. I'm like right now. I'm like rolling through the pages of my videos. The thing is, since I've been doing it full time, videos come out more often now, so there's more pages to get through. Because right now I'm scrolling through. I'm only in July of this year, and this is back in 2021, right? Yeah. I mean, it came out. So maybe I wouldn't have done the video review like immediately, but I imagine it would still have happened before the end of the year. So getting to 2021, I'm just, maybe what I should do is actually just YouTube search Metroid Dread Andres Restart review, and I bet then it'll pop up. That makes more sense. Let's see. I'm curious how long mine was. So I made a video 2 years ago that was 13 minutes and 25 seconds. That was why people want Metroid Dread, #Metroid Dread. But I don't know if that was my review. Maybe I call it a review. Anyway, I don't know. I thought I did a longer one, but I could be wrong. But yeah, there's a lot you could talk about with that game. I'm looking through. Yeah, I mean, 13-minute video sounds like a pretty par for the course, actually. Anyway, yeah, Dread. It's a special game, because it's an experience, right? Like they really did focus on the Dread element, right, with the Emmy, but then just like it's beyond just the Dread element. Like that's a really cool part, but the aesthetic of the game, I thought the story was really well done. The pacing was really well done. The moments where there were voice acting, there wasn't a lot, but when it was there, it was epic. And Metroid Dread is one of the best games on Switch, hands down. A top 10 game for sure. Aaron Raffs asked, "Hi, Andreas Restart. How was your weekend?" So my weekend was good. I wouldn't say it was like crazy good. It was just good. It was actually a little dramatic. So I well, it wasn't that dramatic actually, but right before the weekend it was. So my brother, well, this was planned, right? But I didn't know. My brother went to Iowa with his. Well, actually, technically, he's married now, legally speaking. Although they're gonna have the wedding in the summer. So they went to Iowa for Christmas, and so I'm taking care of his cat alongside my cat, which is not that big a deal. But I say that because my dad was gonna stay here for Christmas, but my my stepmom, she was gonna go to Colombia to celebrate Christmas with her family there. But unfortunately, her mother passed away, and so my dad gives me a call. This was actually it was last week, and called me like past midnight, which he would never do. It's like, hey, so she passed away, right? So then my dad was still working because of the holiday stuff. So I go over to kind of be there for my stepmom for a little bit. And she decides instead of flying in at the end of the week, she was going to fly that night, like hours after finding out. So I go there, I help her pack. My dad comes, and my dad was going to stay, but because of the situation and to support her, he also decides, okay, I'm going to fly too. So they found out like maybe 11 at night, and they fly the next flight that they take a plane like at 6 a.m. Right. So it was a very quick turnaround there. And so it was interesting, I guess. It's unfortunate. I mean, sad. I didn't have a personal relationship with this person, so it wasn't like an emotional toll for me. It was sad to see my stepmom that way, right? I do care about her. So it is like a transition for her for sure. But so those were eventful things. But what ended up happening is like, oh, so none of my immediate family is here. Now I have some aunts and I have some cousins, and so we actually were gonna have Christmas Eve at my dad's house, but unfortunately, he had to leave. So he had to order a whole bunch of food. So I had to get a whole bunch of food. And anyways, I celebrated Christmas Eve with my aunts and cousins. But otherwise, I kind of spent most of the weekend by myself, which I didn't mind. Because the thing is, most of my friends are spending the holidays with their families, right? So there wasn't really anyone to spend it with outside of that one Christmas Eve evening with my aunts, uncles, and cousins, which was nice. But so it was kind of a quiet weekend. Is the long my that is the answer to that question. It was all right, but it was a hectic week leading up to that. Boom Mini, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've had a solid holiday. There's some, for me, it's been tranquil, I guess you could say. But it's all right. Thank you. So, let's see here. AB James, I would love a Samus Returns HD on base Switch in 2024. That would be awesome. I wouldn't complain. I can't. How could I complain? That yes. I think a lot of people would love it if Nintendo were to just kind of take a lot of 3DS games and just upscale them to HD. But I feel that they'll do more than that in most cases. So like people talk about like Ocarina of Time 3D, and they're like, oh, they should just upscale that into HD. And that's kind of like maybe like an easy thing for them to do. But I don't think they're going to upscale Ocarina of Time into like I don't think they're going to do anything basic like that. Like if they're going to go back to a game that's already been remade or remastered, like they're going to do something significant, I would say. There are some exceptions. Like I think in the case of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, if we get those, I believe that the only way we get those is if they come in a collector's pack or if they are remade down the road. I'm of the belief that Nintendo is not going to remaster a game and then remaster a remaster already. Or if they do, we're talking about it's such a significant overhaul of a remaster that it's fair to call it a remake. That's my perspective on it. Like, I mean, I guess, for example, do you want to argue that Metroid Prime Trilogy is a remaster of Metroid Prime? You could argue, I guess you could argue that, because it technically has visual upgrades and the controls are reworked, right? So that is a remastering to an extent, technically. But I guess the point I'm making, though, is that collector's packs are the exceptions to the rule, right? So when we talk about Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, if those are going to come to Switch, I think they would come as a collector's pack. And so that kind of changes things a little bit. Actually, 3D All-Stars, right? We want to talk about, oh, well, Mario 64 is technically remastered there, but they also sort of reworked it for Nintendo DS, Super Mario 64 DS. They did, but 3D All-Stars is a collector's pack. So I believe that collector's packs are the exception to remastering something after something's already been remastered. That's kind of how I think it generally works with Nintendo when they revisit games more than once, excluding virtual console offerings. Anyway, do I want Samus Returns HD? Yes. But I don't know how Nintendo would go about doing that. I don't know. There's a few 3DS games that I think Nintendo needs to figure out a way to allow us to play them in a modern way. Let's see here. Chrono Rigged has been a member for 14 straight months. It's been good having you around all this time. Thank you for sticking around. All right. Verum Verbi, are my super chat notifications off? I'm using a different stream setup, so there's not like a notification that pops, right? But I see it, and so when I see it, I just share it, right? So I did share, like, you guys should be able to see, right? Like the super chats that I've gotten, I've been able to share them. So I see them, unless you're telling me there's something else that's come that hasn't popped up here, but it should pop up in this little thing I have where I can look at them and share them on screen if I can. I don't as I'm looking, I don't see I've seen the three. X, do you plan on talking about the Japanese version of Tears of the Kingdom? There are some missing context hidden only in Japanese, including Ganon's speech at the end of the game. I'm not familiar with that actually. I would have to look into that. I haven't really looked at the Japanese version. If there's like a website or a video, feel free to recommend it to me. I'll definitely check it out. Truth Bomb. Andres, have you seen the comment section from the Rob of Rule to Review video about classic and newer Zelda? If you haven't, you should go check. Do you still believe it is a vocal minority? Well, if I'm looking at the comments, and that's, you know, it's one of those things where it's hard to whatchamacallit, like gauge how many people, right? But you look at Tears of the Kingdom sales. I mean, I think that kind of speaks for itself. So, you know, and I actually think that there's a lot of people that just kind of want to talk smack about Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I'm not saying you're not entitled to your opinion on that. I mean, there's obviously people that they feel that way, but there's also a lot of people that didn't like Breath of the Wild. There's also a lot of people that didn't like Skyward Sword. There's also a lot of people that didn't like Twilight Princess. There was also a lot of people that didn't like the Wind Waker. Like this always happens. Like there's always a significant portion of people that don't feel too excited about the most recent Zelda. It's what I call the Zelda cycle. So you know, I don't. I'm not sure exactly referred to. I'll have to check the comments in the video, right? But you know, I'm not saying that people's opinions aren't valid. I just think that more people are okay with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom versus prior Zelda. Like the sales show for that. And also, it doesn't help that Skyward Sword HD sold worse than Link's Awakening remake. Granted, I think you could argue, well, Link's Awakening remake was a visual remake, while Skyward Sword HD was an upscale. So you could argue that maybe the reason why it didn't sell well isn't because of the type of game; it's just because of the amount of effort that went into it. Zalado asked, "Hi, what is the stream title is all about?" Well, the stream title, what it's about, is this study that shows that Mario Odyssey apparently can help decrease depression symptoms by nearly 50%. So then, I guess this is a good moment to kind of like jump into that a little bit. How? How does this do this, right? Like, I think it's really cool that we can play games and they can help us in some way, shape, or form. Like, I mean, I've definitely used games as an escape before, but I think you could make the argument that, you know, that sometimes an escape isn't always a good thing, right? Sometimes you shouldn't always escape from everything, right? But like, I know, like, you know, like in high school, like I went through some stuff with my social interactions there, right? And I started just playing Pokemon every day on my free time at school. That was kind of what I just started doing, as opposed to just dealing with all the drama that was going on. I mean, basically, you know, I liked a girl and it didn't work out, to put it simply, right? Um, but and so like I kind of used that as an escape back in high school. Um, and so that was fun, and that's when I kind of started getting really into Pokemon as an adult, right? And I kind of like it discovered like the competitive nature of Pokemon, and I started going to tournaments and stuff in college and things like that, which was a really cool experience. Um, but you know, I did spend a lot of time on that. Was that the most healthy way to spend my time. There's some debate to be had there, but I think I learned a lot about game theory, so there's value in that at least. Um, and then like when I play Breath of the Wild, like whenever, or even Tears of the Kingdom, just the way the world is designed, like moving about it, it's soothing to me. It feels relaxing. Heck, even Pikmin 4, like I love just the music in the game and just exploring the environments. Like it's fun. But I even think about Mario Odyssey, getting back to that game specifically. I think I almost want to say sound design has something to do with it. I know there's more to. I'm not trying to boil it down just to sound design, but I think there's something to like running around and there being like a good amount of sound effects that help to immerse you, right? Like you can hear the footsteps, you can hear the footsteps change depending on what you're running around. You see how responsive the character is. Right now, I'm going beyond us at like sound design, but like end effects, but also animation work. Like when you move around with Mario, you see the smoke, and also just what you can do, right? So then you start just like for me when I play Mario games, I explore with what I can actually do within the gameplay, within the mechanics, and I'll start doing somersaults and twists and jumps and different things like that. And so then you start to get a real feel for the character, and then little by little, between the sound effects, the visuals, everything you can do in the game, you find yourself kind of getting into that world. And it's sort of appealing to maybe different elements of your psyche, where like one maybe be like just exploring, but also like just the critical thinking, or maybe it is sort of simulating kind of like an outside environment, right? And I think there is also something to the idea of just kind of like exploring nature. And so you play a game like Mario Odyssey or like Breath of the Wild, where you can kind of explore nature without some of the drawbacks, like you know the elements, like experiencing heat or exhaustion. And so there could be something there as well, that I think may help people. But I think a lot of it just has to do with an escape and just being able to fully immerse yourself into a world and enjoy it, right? It's done in a way where it's not specifically Mario Odyssey, like the way Mario Odyssey is designed. um you can kind of like progress in that game how you choose. And so what I mean by that is that yes, there is challenge in the game, and so for those who seek it, they can find it. But for those that just want to kind of continually progress in a natural way with not an extreme amount of resistance, but just a healthy amount, what that does is that because there's maybe that right balance, because of the way the game is designed, you can progress in the game, enjoy that sense of satisfaction by defeating certain challenges or puzzles, and you're kind of you're working your brain here to figure these things out, and then you kind of feel impressed with yourself when you actually do so. But it's not so challenging that it's stressful and it provides anxiety, because depending on the player, right, for some people they could find certain challenges like too stressful, right? Like not everyone wants to kind of bang their head against the wall to beat a puzzle or to beat a boss. Like some people just want to kind of enjoy the game, and sometimes it's just based off the time. Like even though I really like challenging games, I don't always like to just get my ass kicked. Sometimes I just kind of want to enjoy the adventure. So there's a little bit of a balance there, I would say. Um, and so that's kind of like some of like I just sort of think about Mario Odyssey and just how it may help people. I can kind of see how that may work. Let's see here. I have another super chat here. Corona Reg, thank you for the super chat, buddy. Hey Andres, one feature I really hope they support in the next Switch is Dolby Atmos. It would make games like Prime 4 more atmospheric. I I hope so. I'm not super learned when it comes to like all the stereo and surround sound options, like what the differences are for the different Dolby versions. But yes, give me more advanced audio options. I'm all for that. Like I want that. Yeah, I want to feel like there's a space pirate breathing down my neck sometimes. Let's do it. Like, yes, I'm all for it. All for it. And that kind of gets me excited thinking about Metroid Prime 4, like just how much immersion we may have for that game when it finally comes out. Because that's a big thing about the Metroid Prime games, and maybe a lot of people may be sleeping on, that it's about immersing yourself, right? Like having the visor, being in first person. It's about making you feel like you are Samus exploring this alien world. So hopefully they really go all in on that concept. Let's see here. Hey, Jessica in the chat. What's up, Jessica? How you doing? I'm glad you like the background. Venetus added me and Truth Bomb. The video has only 504 comments. Even if all of them are negative, that's an already compared to 20 million total. Yeah, I mean, you could call it a social bubble, right? Is that what they call it? Like, it's hard to quantify these things. Like, you can't look at a single video and look at the comments in the video and think that that is a proper representation of the entire masses, right? There's just other factors, you know. There are. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't an audience, right? Going back to what we were talking about earlier about people who aren't happy with the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom direction. But I mean, if the games are selling really well and they continue to sell really well, then there's a lot of raving reviews. That's actually something you can quantify, right? There are going to be people that are going to be unhappy with something, like, and they're going to talk about it, right? Like, that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that it's really hard to gauge what the ratio is there. And my perspective isn't that I think the linear stuff from prior Zelda should go away. But it's more so finding a better way to integrate them, right? And I was arguing before we knew about, like, we knew of Tears of the Kingdom, but we didn't know how Tears of the Kingdom would play out because we, like the mystery leading up to the release of the game. I was always arguing for a lot of linear Zelda elements to make it into Tears of the Kingdom, even though it would still be within the open air format. And I would argue that I was correct on my speculation there. Like, I would say I talked about how they would have more unique boss fights, and there are, with for the dungeons and in the overworld. I talked about how there would be unique dungeons, and there are. The dungeons differentiate themselves more so than how they were in Breath of the Wild. Now, are they in the form that they were in prior Zelda games? No. And I would say that in prior Zelda games, the dungeons were the focal point of the games. And they're not so much in Tears of the Kingdom. But I think there are still good things happening with the dungeons. Like, I would say the Wind Temple and the Lightning Temple are really good. Fire Temple could use some tweaking. The Water Temple, I think it needs an overhaul, right? So I'm not trying to argue that the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom are better than the dungeons in prior Zelda games. But I do see things that they're doing. They're going the right direction from the restart or like kind of like what they did with Breath of the Wild, right? So I think they are bringing in some elements. I thought they did a better job of telling a more interesting story throughout the adventure in Tears of the Kingdom as opposed to Breath of the Wild. That there's multiple plot threads. There's multiple things that happen throughout. They built up more of a relationship between you and the final boss as opposed to what they did in Breath of the Wild. I thought the final fight, the phases was one of the best ends to a Zelda game or just games, period. I thought the beginning was amazing too. Like, I think they did a lot of good things in terms of incorporating some of the elements we've wanted in linear Zelda, but also in the open world format. So I think Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, from that perspective, we're moving in a great direction. And so my thinking, I've been consistent on this, is that while I don't expect them to go back to linear Zelda, I think they're continue with open air. The next Zelda game is not going to feel like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom either. Let's remember that, right? Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel. The next Zelda game will not be. So it's going to be its own thing. There's going to be elements from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom we'll have. But there's also going to be elements of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom we will not have. And I also think there are a lot of elements that we saw in prior linear Zeldas that will find their way within this new format. And so my belief is that the Zelda team, they will listen to people, right? They're not going to just listen to one side. But they're going to create something new, as they always have. And I think people hear the talk about, oh, we're not going back to linear Zelda, and they think that they're just completely throw away all the good things about linear Zelda. That's not what's going to happen, in my opinion. But they're just going to continue to evolve the formula. Moving on here. A guy you don't know. Where's your okay, you added me. The movement in Odyssey is so polished and fun that I think it's satisfying in and of itself. Also, the HD Rumble is incorporated fantastically, possibly best of any Switch game. Yes. I agree with everything you say there. The game just feels good to move around and play in. And the HD Rumble does add to it. For sure. Having hope. I loved both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They were both fun games, and I'm very excited to see what Nintendo has in store for us for the next Zelda. Yep, years from now. Unless we're counting remakes. Truth Bomb here says, I have friends that hate Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and they don't have YouTube accounts. Your point? I have friends that have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and they love those games. So, I mean, both points are anecdotal, right? Like, we don't have hard information there. So, I'm seeing here, Truth Bomb says, I had added me. I'm fine with open as long as there's some structure to the game and some linearity, especially with the story and dungeons. I mean, I don't really think we necessarily disagree that much. I'm okay. I don't necessarily even need to be able to, like, I don't need to be able to do every dungeon out of order. It's nice to have that as an option. But I'm also very much okay with having a more clearly defined direction for a story in dungeons. And so that's kind of okay with me. And there is a little bit of that in Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe I just think they got to tweak some things. Like, it's really, I mean, I think they're moving in the right direction. I just think they got to tweak some things. And so I'm optimistic the next Zelda will be a better marriage of some classic Zelda tropes that even includes some tropes from linear Zelda, but it'll be an even better realization of an open world Zelda game. Javisario 91 Munoz. If Xenoblade X leak info is real, maybe Monolith would use the initial idea of choosing between male and female protagonists like Mass Effect with the full voice conversation options. I'm not. I kind of want to look into this a little bit more. But if what they're talking about is true, right? This rumor that it's a Xenoblade Chronicles X remake, and so maybe they do go back and they kind of almost reimagine the game somewhat. One thing that I want to see, because I felt like Xenoblade X kind of like whet our appetite for it, is MMO like qualities. Like, it would be nice to play Xenoblade X multiplayer, not just like in an arena, but the entire game. That would be cool. So, if they can go back and kind of rework the structure of the game somewhat where that's possible. I'm not talking about like necessarily story progression, but like literally like just like the underlying code to kind of make this like possible. I'm all for that. And if they want to include more story mix-ups, that would be cool too. Especially because like if you want to have multiple endings, like they didn't give us like we don't really know how things end up after X. It's like a bit of a cliffhanger there. So I am curious like how they'll handle that, if they're just gonna add an epilogue story, if they go with your idea here and they have like multiple like options in terms of conversations, which maybe leads to multiple potential endings. There's a lot they can potentially do. I'm not expecting this, but it's all right. I see Truthbound. We're all good. X. A lot of lore tubos all of a sudden stopped talking about the lore of Zelda because Tears of the Kingdom lacked a proper structure to the story and lore. You can watch memories out of order, ancient sages, and have the same scenes. Yeah, a lot of Zelda YouTubers that focus mostly on lore and theories. There is a decent amount of them that are not in love with how things are handled in Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't really mind it. Like my biggest problem with how Tears of the Kingdom was handled was just the multiple retellings of the imprisoning war. To me, that's the biggest flaw. Otherwise, I actually think it's pretty good. But I guess also I'm more forgiving of. I don't know if it's more forgiving or maybe I'm just more willing to be flexible with trying to figure out how things fit together. Like if things don't kind of go where I'm expecting it, that's not necessarily a problem for me. Yeah, cause I said that. Then that's one of the things where like I think that comes down to your suspension of disbelief, right? Like here, because X here is talking about like a lot of people didn't like how there are NPCs that don't remember you, like Hestu and the Koroks. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, right? Like, would it been better to just have it so everyone recognizes you? I agree. There are characters that do, but then there are characters that don't. And so, like, when I play the game, I just come up with my own headcanons, right? Like, oh, okay, I guess Koroks have short-term memory. And who knows, maybe down the road, we'll get an interview from a Numa that's like, oh, yeah, Koroks have a short-term memory or are reborn every 2 years or something. Like, we'll get some sort of mind-blowing fact someday, but all of a sudden, it would explain somewhat why the Koroks didn't recognize you, right? And so that's a possibility, but maybe that's even a fun theory video I could do at some point. Maybe I'll look to see if there's anything that seems to support that idea. But I guess my point is simply that, things like that I don't necessarily freak out over. Like it's a video game, right? Like when we play video games, there are a lot of things that don't match up really well, and maybe it's the case that some people are holding Tears of the Kingdom to such a high expectation that they want all of that to. They want it all, right? They don't want to see a moment where their immersion can be broken. And it is interesting, right? Because the further we sort of progress with technology in games, the more we sort of expect the games to kind of produce, as opposed to leaving more for our imagination, right? Like you go back to Zelda 1, there is a lot left to the imagination. Now, not as much. So, there is a little bit of that, right? But what's interesting, though, is that if you read a lot of the interviews for how they made Tears of the Kingdom, they want to still leave a lot up for the imagination. Like, they want players to kind of form their own opinions and thoughts on what's going on. They want players to fill in the gaps. They want players to kind of think of the world and create their own story, right? That's a big kind of. They want you to have your own adventure, how you choose. And so, by doing that there are challenges there, because for people that want immersion, it's tricky. It's tricky because it's almost like two different styles. Boomini, any thoughts on what C and CZR 2024 stands for? Well, I think I talked about this last week, but has my thinking evolved on it at all? It has a little bit, actually. So my first thought was Capcom Zelda Remake 2024. And then I heard a lot of people suggest, what about Classic Zelda Remake 2024? And so I thought about that for a little bit, and I was like, that seems redundant to me. I'm not sure. But I think perspective really matters, right? A classic Zelda remake, like maybe, I mean, I could see maybe when they say classic Zelda remake, they mean like the remaking of like an older style of Zelda, right? Like, so at this point, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the norm for Zelda, right? So that would mean the Ocarina of Time style of Zelda is no longer modern. So calling it a classic Zelda remake, there could be something there, right? And since we were just talking about how there's a lot of people who are not a fan of how the Tears of the Kingdom was handled and how there doesn't seem to be this direction, how it seems the Zelda team is moving away from linear, Nintendo remaking Ocarina of Time, which is a linear Zelda game, you know, maybe it's an opportunity for the fan base to show, hey, we want this style of game. So, I'll put that out there. Not that I expect Ocarina of Time remake to even approach the numbers of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, but if it does, that would be cool. So anyway, Boomay, to get back to your question though, I would say classic Zelda remake. While at first I didn't like the idea, I like the idea more now, and so I can kind of see it meaning Ocarina of Time. It could also mean an older 2D Zelda still. And that's why I suggest Capcom Zelda remake. Like, it feels like an easier belief to me, and but I think there's just a lot of factors. Like, maybe they mean classic Zelda reveal, right? And so, as opposed to classic Zelda remake. So, because I can see Nintendo revealing, say, for example, the theorized Ocarina of Time remake in 2024. I don't see it coming out in 2024. But also, I'm not sure exactly when Switch 2 comes out next year. If Switch 2 comes out, say, for example, May of next year, that changes a lot, right? Because then that's like, what, 8 months it's 8 months where they could have different kinds of games coming out, and maybe that's enough of a window where you can have something like an Ocarina of Time remake, a Metroid Prime 4, a Mario Sports title, maybe a Mario Party, and a 3D Mario, and something else that's crazy from Nintendo. Like, that could all happen. There would be maybe enough of a window there where that could all fit in and it'd be nicely balanced. But my expectation is that if we do get a Zelda remake from Nintendo, it'll be a 2025 thing. But if it's a classic Zelda, if it stands for classic Zelda reveal, where they reveal it in 2024, a remake of a classic Zelda, like maybe Ocarina of Time, cool. Going back to the 2D part though, I really would love remakes of the Capcom Zelda games. I would really love that. But I also think it'd be odd for Nintendo to have a second Zelda remake in a row that's 2D without a new 2D Zelda in between. Like, that feels weird to me. We got Link's Awakening remake, and that's it. And so if they remake another 2D Zelda without giving us a new 2D Zelda, it's going to be a bit of a head scratcher for me. So what I'm curious on, but hypothetically, I'm not saying it can't happen. Let's say we do get a Zelda remake next year, and it's another Capcom Zelda, right? Maybe it's a remake of Minish Cap, which would be amazing. But it's purely hypothetical, right? Based off this rumor. If that happens, I would assume that some of the media coverage around this, be it in an interview or during the announcement, they make mention of future Zelda plans, and they say that a Zelda in the top-down style or what have you is in development. Because I just think it would be weird to have two 2D Zelda remakes in a row when it's been so long since the last new 2D Zelda, which was A Link Between Worlds, which came out 2013. So it's already been over 10 years since a new 2D Zelda game. And if we get a Zelda remake next year that's 2D as well, what does that mean for the next 2D Zelda? After, like, how many more years are we away from getting a new 2D Zelda game? Are we talking about a 15-year cycle? Like, yeah. So that's just a little odd, but Nintendo is odd. Lou JT. I just think that we live in a society these days where negativity spreads like wildfire, and anyone can say how much they love Tears of the Kingdom, it'll be drowned out by the haters. I do agree with that. Negativity does spread like wildfire. It really does. All right, I'm looking through chat here. Just looking through. It looks like you guys are having a Zelda debate in the chat, and I'm trying to catch up on it. Super Chris, generalizing isn't really a fair thing to do. I think as long as it's been made clear that you are generalizing, it's fine. I don't know. It's very circumstantial. Zalado, Andres, if you could choose the main cast of the Zelda movie, what actors would you choose? I would choose Timothy Chalamet, Elle Fanning, and Dave Bautista. I'm assuming Timothy Chalamet would be Link, Elle Fanning would be Zelda, and Dave Bautista would be Ganondorf. But I know who Timothy Chalamet is, but I feel like I need to look up the others. Okay. Elle Fanning. Have I even watched any movies? I did not watch Maleficent or any of them. I don't think I've seen any of these movies. Oh, I know. I saw Super 8. Okay. I need to watch more of these movies, I guess. And then Dave Bautista, I'm pretty sure I've seen him in a few movies, but I'm just going to look him up just to make sure I'm connecting the right name here. Oh, yeah. Yep. Could he be a good Ganondorf? He definitely has like the physical stature, but personality-wise, I feel like he would be a better Daruk. Like he would be like the king of the Gorons. Like he would be like he to me he gives me I'm not saying he can't be a villain. I'm just saying to me he gives me like really good, strong, but like good guy energy, like Daruk, like a Goron. But you know, I'm not saying he can't do it. I think with a lot of actors they get typecasted, right? So I don't want to say that an actor can't do anything, right? I'm just kind of envisioning like I just kind of look at the work that they've already done, right? So that would be that would be typecasting. But I'm open to them showing another face, another side to their abilities. Boomini. Is it unlikely for a Zelda remake to have the same art style as a previous Zelda remake? Example, would Nintendo be fine remaking Minish Cap with the same art style as Link's Awakening? I would say it is unlikely. It is unlikely they would use the exact same art style. Now, could there be some similarities? Yeah, I think there could be some similarities. But I think that if they remake Minish Cap, it will definitely look different than the Link's Awakening remake. It's not going to be the same art style. Most Zelda games have a different art style from each other. That's just kind of what they do. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are kind of like the big exceptions. And I guess also Wind Waker to Spirit Tracks. I mean, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks. Like, those are kind of the only exceptions there. Boomini. I actually agree. Even though Jason Momoa usually plays a protagonist, I could see him be Ganondorf. He has a little bit more of a, I would say, it's easier for me to envision him in an antagonistic role than Dave Bautista. It might be a hair thing, though. There's a little bit of Ganondorf has long hair, so of course you can put on a wig, right? Or you can shave it. X says, after you finish streaming, I want you to look in the comment section for your Ganondorf's True Desire video and search for a username called Carl Johansson. He talks about what Ganondorf really says in Japanese. Okay. I I'm not sure how much the search features are there, but I'll take a look. Lou JT adds me. If you were given the opportunity to come up with the plot for the next Zelda game, what would you propose to the Zelda team? Okay, cool. I'm glad you said Zelda game and not Zelda movie. Not saying the Zelda movie wouldn't be fun, but I'm more excited thinking about how they'll handle the next Zelda game. And so I actually do have a plot in mind for the next Zelda game. It's loose. And I probably have touched on I have talked about this already on some streams. But maybe I can expand on it here. This is all in the moment, right? But my vision for the next Zelda game, plot-wise, Link wakes up in like a meadow or like in the woods, but not like a thick woods, but like kind of like, you can still see the sun shining through the canopy. You can see some pieces of the sky, but there's some nice vibrant flowers, grass, some soft hills. You hear birds chirping. You can hear like some water in the background, like a small little river or a pond. Something somewhat similar to the environment of the Great Plateau, but envision it like without any enemies, maybe a little bit more open, a little bit more vibrant, and it's not on a plateau, right? It's just this random part of the world. You kind of wake. I mean, maybe there'll be more to this area as you kind of figure it out, right? But from your perspective, like you just kind of wake up here, right? And so, why do you wake up there? You don't know. Right? And so Link has amnesia. He has no idea who he is or why he's there in the beginning, right? And so, and then you're like, oh crap, Link has amnesia again. He has to get memories. But again, this was one of those things where like how well thought out is this? 'Cause I'm coming up with some of these details on the spot. My biggest thought was just kind of waking up in some sort of natural environment like this to start things off. But then as you explore a little bit more, right, you come to realize that the world is very ancient. And I'm not necessarily saying, oh, you're going to find more ruins, right? There will be ruins, but it's more so the vegetation, the plant life, the animal life, like the trees. Like that's where you start. Maybe it's not completely clear, right? But as you continue to explore, you'll find giant, like whatever big trees you saw in Breath of the Wild, Trees of the Kingdom. Like we're talking like I'm meaning like redwood trees, like massive, ginormous trees that you could spend a long time exploring, like huge, and maybe run into a giant Deku Baba, right? Like, and so you start to just explore more of the world, and it's basically like imagine if things were growing for thousands of years without dying, and so it's kind of like almost like the wild, but to the extreme. And eventually, you will chance yourself upon a city that's closed off, gated. Think like Attack on Titan style, right? But it's actually maybe even somewhat futuristic inside, but you can't get inside. It's locked in, and then that's kind of like you have to figure out how you get in. You don't know what's going on, and then over time, right? Another kind of thing I thought of. I haven't thought all of this through, right? But something else I kind of think. Zelda, she's a mystery. No one knows who the princess is or where the princess is. That is a complete and total mystery and something you're going to find out. It's not like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom where the princess is very well known. If anything, it's closer to Ocarina of Time, where when you start the game, there's a talk of, you have to go to Hyrule and meet the princess, right? Or even like Twilight Princess, except the difference is you don't just meet them at the beginning of or fairly early on into the game. No, like she's not just in a castle. That's a mystery. You kind of learn more about the legends and the prophecy and what's going on with the world. And there's more mystery as you explore this ancient world. that has a lot more to the wild, it's a lot more extreme. And then you have this contrast with the cities that are encased in giant walls, right? And you have to find your way in. And maybe there are even dungeons inside some of the cities, but then also there could still be some ancient ruins that do have their own big dungeons as well. And so that's kind of what I think. Like, I'm thinking like huge, ancient, and a lot of mystery. And that's kind of the general plot. I haven't thought about how they introduce Ganondorf. Maybe it's not even Ganondorf, but it's you sort of slowly learning about the world and the dangers that force what's left of civilization to kind of encase themselves into these giant cities, right? So there is kind of like that Attack on Titan influence. But if you watch all of Attack on Titan, it becomes very different. So I'm not trying to get at that to that level. But that's kind of like surface level thoughts on how they could handle some of the story elements for the next Zelda. I'll have to think more on how they handle the antagonist in the game, but I really like the idea of waking up in like a beautiful, tranquil environment, not knowing what's gone at all, a lot of mystery, minimal exposition. Like, actually, I love the idea of having no exposition. None. Actually, this is a very much a me thing, right? But it's very hard for me personally to get invested into a story before I'm invested into a story, which I understand is a bit of a catch 2022, a catch 22. But if you start off like you just kind of like the game starts, it's almost like Breath of the Wild, right? Like Breath of the Wild was pretty good, but this game would be even quicker. Like it's basically you just maybe the screen starts black and then you start to hear like the water flow, you start to hear the birds chirping, then you'll see like the eyelids open, and then you look around, you get up. That's the beginning of the game. No words, you just are left to explore and figure it out. That's it. And then little by little, the story starts to reveal itself to you. And so I kind of like that idea. I love the idea of Princess Zelda being a complete and total mystery. Not a mystery. Oh, where is she? Even though you can see her. I mean, like, you have no idea if she's even in the game. She's not even necessarily in the marketing. Like, maybe they could put a trailer of the game where there'll be some subtle hint to that. Maybe they'll even have, like, a voice, but they won't put a face to it. Maybe a silhouette. Like, they could do something. Like, they could tease it in the marketing for the game. But, like, I want it to be a complete mystery for a significant portion of the game. Like, I want to be able to play 30, 40, 50 hours before we discover who Zelda is. And then when we discover who Zelda is, that's not the end of the game. That's just like the next big chunk. But I'm talking about like a significant amount of time here. Like it's almost like finding the master. So like think like for example, how long it takes you to get to the Master Sword in Ocarina of Time or in Twilight Princess. Like you have to beat multiple dungeons, right? Like you have to be 30-40% into the game before you get to that point where you get the Master Sword. Imagine that's when you finally meet Zelda for the first time. So that's kind of like my thought process on that so far. So I'm just looking at what you guys have to say on this. Lou J, I appreciate the thoughtful response. Thanks. I really like the idea of Zelda being a mystery. In the end, I'm just excited for what's to come. X, dude, that's a great idea of a story. I'm glad you guys seem to appreciate it. Having Hope agrees, awesome. Yeah, now I kind of wish that was a Zelda game, right? Like we don't know what they're actually gonna do. Maybe they'll do something even crazier. Skywalker 67. What do you think of the story by Outside Extra suggesting that the Doomslayer is Link, but in the far future? I feel like I've heard this before. I mean, I definitely don't think it's true, but entertaining the idea. Like, why can't he be? I'll have to look at the details. Silent protagonist that wears green. I mean, like, what would happen if? I mean, it's interesting too because when you think about like Mars and the demons, like it's similar to the demons and the calamity attacks and the red. Like I see there's some similarities there. And I'm all for Link going to space. Him using guns, though, doesn't feel very Zelda to me. It would be neat, though, if there would be a Zelda game that felt very Star Wars-y, almost. Like where there's lightsabers, for example. I mean, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did have energy swords that were kind of like lightsabers. So there's a little bit of that. But I would love it if there was a Zelda game that took place either in far into the future or far into the past or on another planet, but basically some sort of circumstance that leads to the life around you to be very different and exotic, right? Like think about this, right? Like we think about like Zelda game when we envision them with like a typical fantasy world. Like, there are some weird things, but we're still expecting to see horses, for example, right? But think about our world and what we sort of understand it in the past, right? Like we have all these bones dating millions of years ago, and so like there's different ages, right? Like there's different phases of mammals, and we go even further. There's dinosaurs. Like imagine being so far into the past that the animal life is just not like anything we know of today, right? Like it doesn't have to be in the future. It doesn't have to be an alien world. It can be even just so far into the past that the birds, deer, horses, pigs, dogs, they don't exist. So they have to think of other things instead that would be there, that would feel otherworldly to us or very alien to us, even if it's not necessarily alien. So they could go to another planet. I'm actually not even necessarily against that either. But ultimately getting at here, it'd be really cool to just see like something that feels completely different from anything we've ever seen before. That would be cool. Boomini, do you think there's a chance that Nintendo will do both, release Twilight Princess Bigger on Switch and also release Zelda Remake in 2024? Do I think there's a chance? Not really. Not a good one. Like extremely low. It all depends. Like it's not like a total. Like, do we have any circumstance where Nintendo has put out something like that? Let's look at the history of Zelda releases. If I Google Legend of Zelda, I bet Wiki might show me like just a straight list of just the history. Actually, maybe let's see. Will the Legend of Zelda Wiki show me like game releases and release dates like on the front page? No. Or will it? Navigation, content, games. If I click on games, no, that takes me to something broader. I want to see. I'm gonna Google list of all Zelda games. I'm hoping that this list includes not just like the main games, but even like collector's packs and stuff like that. Okay, I found what I was looking for, I think. And so I'll just screen share this with you guys. It's just a wiki page. Hopefully it has what we're kind of looking for here. All right. Can you guys see this? I think you can. You can. Great. Cool. So we got Legend of Zelda originally, right? In the 80s. Right. Then Adventure of Link shortly after. Link to the Past in 91. Link's Awakening on Game Boy in 93. Ocarina of Time in 98, so there's a pretty big gap there. Majora's Mask in 2000. Oracle of Ages and Seasons in 2001. Because I guess they're showing the two different versions. And then A Link to the Past and Four Swords. Right, so that was the remake? Game Boy Advance. Wind Waker 2002. They don't include the Majora's Mask, like promotion disc, and they had the Master Quest. Like that's what I was kind of hoping to see on this list, and that's not there. Yeah, that's not what I was looking. That's not what I was looking for. When did that come out, though? When did Master Quest? I mean, came out probably shortly before the Wind Waker. Release date. Yeah, but where was the 2-game? February 2003 on the same disc enhanced. Okay, so it was an emulated port of Ocarina of Time and the Master Quest. So it didn't come with Majora's Mask. Interesting. So it was released around the same time as the Wind Waker. I would argue that getting Ocarina of Time on GameCube 5 years later, back then, is very similar to us getting Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. It's very similar. And so this came out around the same time as the Wind Waker. That doesn't mean I think it's how Nintendo's gonna handle themselves now, though. So I don't think it's. I wouldn't bet any money on it. On getting both in the same year. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying it seems pretty unlikely. Now, getting a 2D Zelda and a 3D Zelda in the same year, I think that's a little bit more. I'm more willing to believe a 2D Zelda and a 3D Zelda remake, like a new 2D Zelda game, like in 2 different halves of the year. Like, to me, that's more believable than a Zelda remake. And when, imagine getting an Ocarina of Time remake and then also Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD. Different. Well, I mean, the one caveat in my brain is what if they want to look at it as this is just a year where we're putting out a lot of different Zelda games, remakes or remasters. If they want to do a 3D All-Star situation, but then at that point, we're not talking about getting an epic remake from Ocarina of Time. Yeah, so I'll just stick to what I said earlier. It's unlikely. Nothing's impossible, but it's very unlikely. X here. Hey, by the way, I watched your amazing review of the QRD Star T3 Joy-Cons. I just want to know what you think of the ZL, ZR buttons of the Joy-Cons. Pretty good. Actually, I have them right here. Give me one moment. I'll show you. Be right back. Please. So I actually have it. I use it sometimes. I actually use it. It's pretty good. So I like how this looks, right? They're Joy-Cons. They split up like this. They feel good to hold. When you have them on there, it feels like a Pro Controller. You can hear an audible click, but it's a satisfying click, I would argue. Everything it feels pretty good. It's I would say a pretty good alternative to the Pro Controller. And also, for example, right, I was playing Cuphead, right, with my cousin on my Switch. I was using the Pro Controller. At first, I had him using the Joy-Cons in the Joy-Con grip, but he actually prefers this. This to him feels like a proper controller. So it feels pretty good. And I agree, actually. When I've had some friends over to play Mario Kart or Smash, I've used this and I've been fine with it. It's pretty good. The battery life is not as powerful. Metroid does look really cool, though. You can use different colored lights, so I do like it for that. But I think the battery life is a little bit weaker. But still, it'll get you 20, 30 hours. So they're pretty good. Johnny Hernandez. There a leak. The upgrade Switch that we going to get in 2024 is the Switch 2. What? Yeah. I mean, most people believe most industry insiders believe Switch 2 is coming out next year. Yes. We'll see what happens. Truth Bomb. Andres and chat. Merry Christmas to you all. Have a wonderful new year. Andres, keep up the good work and doing what you love. And I'm sure 2024 will be even bigger than 2023 for you. Peace. I wish you a good night as well. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. 2024, I am excited for what's to come next year. I mean, I think it could be a pretty fun year. Like I am legitimately excited for what's to come this year. Like, even, is it possible we have like a down year? It's possible, but I think we're so close to Metroid Prime 4, and I mean, there's all the reports to Switch 2. Like, we get Switch 2 next year, we get Metroid Prime 4, we're probably getting 3D Mario. And imagine, like, I don't even need Ocarina of Time remake to like, assuming that's actually happening, right? Because I reiterate, it's a theory, but assuming that's actually happening, I'll be excited just to even see it. Like, if they just tease it, like, that would be so hype. And then the games they could put on Switch 2, like Johnny Hernandez says here, it says Resident 4 remake. I would love to see an announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds coming to Switch 2. There's Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which is Budokai Tenkaichi 4. I kind of think that's coming to Switch 2 as well, and I don't think we have a release date for that game. And I kind of wonder if maybe the reason why they haven't put out a release date yet, it could just be, it may not be related, but what if they're sort of waiting for Nintendo to make their hardware reveal, and during this hardware reveal, they're going to announce a variety of games, and one of those games includes Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and that's where they put out the release date. And that's when the release date goes public for all systems, because it's actually day and date. We're close. Like, that would be cool. So I'm actually excited for some third-party games to play on Switch 2, potentially. A lot of Nintendo games. I feel like there's got to be, like, we talked about the Metroid Prime 4, like the 3D Marios, right? The Zelda, potential Zelda remakes. But, like, I feel like if we're talking about like a launch window, there's got to be like that kind of game that they put out early on. You know, like kind of like the Switch Sports or the Wii Sports, or like the Nintendo Land, the 1-2 Switch kind of game. Like, there's got to be something like that. And I so hope it's something more like Wii Sports or Nintendo Land. Personally, what I really want to see is like a Nintendo Land 2 or Nintendo World. That would be so cool. Now, I want to point something out here. I think Nintendo Land was amazing as a launch title or a launch window title for Wii U, but not as the main thing. It needs to be like a complementary piece to another major release. You know, like, I think they need to put out something that's like a true hardcore campaign that showcases what the system can do. That has to be like something from Nintendo like that, right? So like 3D Mario or Metroid Prime 4, like that's kind of what I think would need to be there. And if they do Metroid Prime 4, it's because 3D Mario is coming out like a couple months later for the holidays. So probably 3D Mario, but I'm open to some other ideas, is my main point here. But I am interested to see what other kind of Nintendo game puts alongside these. That complementary game that offers more variety, fills up the lineup, appeals to a larger audience. I hope it's like a sequel to Nintendo Land. It was such a good game. Racements, Andreas Restart. November 20th, 2002, released it for Ocarina of Time on GameCube and Master Quest disc. Did the website lie to me? I guess it depends on the region, because I'm looking at this page. It's saying that the 2-game disc came out February 28th, 2003. Oh, Japan. So Japan, it came out November 28th, 2002. There you go. Which, by the way, I think that was shortly before the release of Wind Waker, which released December 2002 in Japan. Let me double check that. So I guess the idea is that it came out shortly before the release of Wind Waker as kind of like a promotional thing to excite people right before they got that game. I think that's what it is. Because Wind Waker release date December 2002. Right. And then if it was February 2003 in America, that would make sense. The Zelda, the Ocarina of Time one, because Wind Waker came out March 2003 in North America. So yeah, I think the idea is that it came out like a few weeks before Wind Waker per region. Connor adds me. Hi, Andres. How's it going, man? Merry Christmas. I finally got Super Mario RPG remake for the Switch, and I wonder, is this game better than the SNES, or are they both better? Hello there, Connor. Merry Christmas to you. I like Super Mario RPG remake more than the original, but also I didn't play the original when it first came out. I played it later, and I would say the game it's aged fine, but it's better. It's better and more playable today. So yeah, the remake is definitely better, in my opinion. Retro Cheats. If we don't see a trailer for the Switch 2 by March, will you change your stance on it coming in 2024? No, I will not. I mean, I think it's always possible, right? But my ultimate stance is, like, they can reveal the system in summer and it still comes out November. And even then, they could reveal a late summer and it comes out fall. They only need like a 2 to 4 month window. So I would not necessarily doubt a 2024 release, but if there's nothing by March, I think we can start entertaining 2025 more. But I wouldn't be giving up on 2024 so quickly. Retro Cheat. So August is your deadline, or is it September? For a reveal, September feels way too late. I understand because I said 2 months, but I don't see a scenario where they announce Switch 2 in September and they release November. I would say August is the absolute latest. If August comes around and the Switch 2 is not announced or mentioned at all, like if it's September 1st and there's no mention of Switch 2, at that point I'd be like, the ship has sailed. It's 2025 for sure. So that would be my absolute deadline. But I really don't think we're gonna have to wait that long. I really would be shocked. Johnny Hernandez asks, you think Switch hardware sales are going to decline in December? We saw numbers of a decline in November, so we'll see for December, but I don't have much reason to think that December will be much better than November. Well, I mean, Christmas, but I mean comparatively to the year to the last year, like year over year. Yeah, but next year is gonna be interesting, so we'll see how things play out. Anyways, everyone, thank you for coming by. It's been a fun stream. If you could leave a like, that'd be appreciated. If you're new here, I talk about Nintendo basically every day, so perhaps consider subscribing. But I am thinking about doing a bigger stream on Thursday, and that one might be kind of fun. So stay tuned, but I'll see you all really soon. Take care.